Alright, today is the 16th day of October 2025. It's about 10:05 in the morning, and I am doing the Albany Tour this time. If you watched my last video, that was the historic tour of Decatur. This is now called the Albany Tour, so it's the Albany section of Decatur. And we're going to see a lot of nice places today. Let me give you a forewarning about that. Now keep in mind, this video I don't think will come out until January the 7th, 2026. So when you're watching this, it's that date or later. And so remember, this is October of last year. So I'm going to read you the things that it says on each stop. There are 27 stops on this tour. And so let's get to the first one. This is where we're at. This is stop number 1, Delano Park and Rose Garden at Gordon Drive and 8th Avenue in Decatur, Alabama. And it says this: the Decatur Land Improvement and Furnace Company employed pioneering landscape architecture Nathan Franklin Barrett to design a whole new city, New Decatur. The park was created in 1887 as a focal point of the master plan city park, had 2 district early phases, the initial park and the stone structures built by the Civil Works Administration, CWA, part of the Federal New Deal program of the 1930s. The stone structures were designed by Carolyn Courtner Smith, the state's first female architect. The park was later named after President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. For decades, the garden was in disrepair and the structures all but lost. In the early 2000s, it was rebuilt as a public-private venture that revitalized the park. The splash pad, a fun place to cool off during the summer months, was built on the footprint of the 1930s WPA wading pool. The playground beside the splash pad welcomes children of all abilities. There is also an interpretive trail winding through the park. And so if you've watched any of my past videos, you've seen the park plenty of times. So I just wanted to show you in here in the Rose Garden, specifically the seating area. I think that's a nice looking stone area there. And so let's go on and look at everything else. Okay, we're at stop number 3, and this is the Maury House at 620 Gordon Drive, actually. It says this house was built circa 1887 for Richard L. and Marion R. Maury. It is a good example of a Victorian Queen Anne style home, complete with a cozy porch. Richard L. Maury followed a path across the park every day to work at the L&N rail shops, at which he was the chief clerk. So hopefully you enjoyed this one. Okay, this is stop number 4. This is called the Godby House, 626 Gordon Drive. The Godby House is an American foursquare that was influenced by the arts and crafts movement, built circa 1910 for attorney Edgar W. Godby and his wife Lucille. It was one of the most expensive houses in Decatur at that time. The Godbys were rumored to have spent $25,000 on the home's construction. The house includes a sleeping porch, which was considered a necessity. Alright, we're at stop number 5. It's called the Woolcott Home at 1012 Gordon Drive. Built circa 1919 for Robert H. and Dora Kane Woolcott, this house is an excellent example of the craftsman style, with this popular in the early 20th century. The widespread gable ends, complete with brackets and exposed eaves, along with the interior's box beam ceilings, French doors, and brick fireplace, were typical of this style. The use of natural materials and a casual floor plan make craftsman-style homes a popular successor to the earlier Victorian styles, which were notably more formal. The west end of the porch has a porte-cochere, however you say that, designed to provide covered parking for an automobile. The high step off that end made it easy for the owners to step onto the floorboard of a Ford Model T. Okay, interesting. I did not know that. Okay, I finally made it to stop number 6. This is called the Probst House, 824 Sherman Street. This 2-story Tudor revival house was built in 1939 for Samuel Nolan Probst and his wife Clara by Samuel's father, Joseph Wiley Probst, who was a partner in Probst and Howe Lumber Company of Coleman, Alabama. A unique feature of this house is the quarter sawn oak trim milled by Probst and Howe Lumber Company. The exterior of the house is clad with Decatur brick. And I would say that's true. Very nice place. Okay, this is stop number 7. This is the People's House at 502 8th Avenue, although the side I'm facing is on Sherman. This 1-story house originally had a Sherman Street address, but when Miss Eula McIntyre Peoples purchased the house in the 70s, she made a front door on 8th Avenue. She allegedly said, "I like the house, but I'll be darned if my address will be named after Sherman." Now the house has an 8th Avenue address. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, this one here is stop number 8, the Payne House at 651 Sherman Street. The Payne House was built in 1890 for New Yorkers Edward C. and Belle Payne. It is an elaborate example of the Queen Anne Victorian style. The clapboard first story contrasts with the decorative shingles on the second story and the pebbled stucco on the projecting gables. The encircling veranda's columns reveal the influence of the colonial revival style. Edward owned the Payne Lumber Company and was an early mayor of New Decatur. He served again as mayor when the town changed its name to Albany. He also owned the first electric car in Decatur. Well, there you go. Very much pioneer. Isn't that a gorgeous house? Okay, these next two houses are number 9 and number 10, and they're both called the Jervis House. It was actually brothers that lived here. This one that we're looking at now is on 652 Sherman Street. And it says the Jervis brothers, who were born in Wales, moved here in 1887 from Ohio. The two jointly owned the Jervis Lumber Company and built houses next to each other. This house, which belonged to John D. and Elizabeth E. Jervis, is an example of the free classic Victorian style, which became common in the 1890s. A revitalization of classical styles influenced architecture, and classical details and columns were used to ornament, wow, that's hard, Queen Anne Victorian designs. That trend is notable here with the Palladian double portico incorporated into the typical encircling Queen Anne veranda. Okay, and we're going to go to the left, and that's the next one. This stop is number 10, the other Jervis house, 646 Sherman Street. It says this was the home of Abram D. and Annie Jervis. Abram was a brother of John D. Jervis, who lived next door. Abram served as treasurer for the Jervis Lumber Company. Abram and Annie also owned the Jervis Foundry and Machine Company. So there you go. You got the history of the Jervis brothers. This is stop number 11, the Hoff House, 636 Sherman Street. The Hoff House was originally built in the 1800s and was the home of George Atlee and Margaret A. Hoff, who arrived in Decatur in 1889. George eventually served as president of the Morgan County National Bank. Margaret Hoff created the elaborate gardens using plants from the Wheeler Plantation and Bankhead Forest. When the Hoff's son and daughter-in-law Atlee H. and Maud Hoff moved in starting in the 1920s, they decided the Victorian house was no longer fashionable and proceeded with a massive remodel of the structure in the late 1920s, adding the colonial revival elements. Atlee was chairman of the Morgan County Bank and also served as president of Decatur's Board of Education. As usual, features of the house is the extensive use of the red gum wood, once native to Alabama, for interior woodwork and wainscoting. Okay, this is stop number 12, the Eister House, 626 Sherman Street. It was built circa 1888 for L&N engineer George C. and his wife Margaret Allen. This house originally showcased the Queen Anne Victorian style. Charles H. and Kitty B. Eister purchased the house circa 1917 and remodeled the house substantially by 1935 in the fashionable colonial revival style of the day. Charles was an attorney with the firm of Eister and Eister, and I also served as the board of the local Coca-Cola, and also served on the board of the local Coca-Cola franchise. Okay, so almost read that one wrong. Okay, this one's probably going to be a little bit hard for you to hear. They are working here, and there's a lot of noise all over the two streets here. But anyway, this is stop 13, the Spite House, 601 Jackson Street. The Spite House, built in 1912, is another excellent example of the colonial revival style, which was particularly prominent in Albany. Early residents were William R. and Eliza J. Spite. William was president of the Home Oil Company. The Spite's daughter, Annie Lou, and her husband, Seneca B. Burr, lived here as well. Mr. Burr worked for Brock and Spite Wholesale Grocers. Okay, and I will tell you something else too. That house I shot over on Sherman, the people who came there came from New York, and they got mad because they couldn't buy land, so they had to buy land over where they did, and so they renamed it from Decatur to Albany, and that was a big fight apparently for a very long time. What an interesting history. Okay, this house across the street is stop number 14. It's called the Bibb House. It's a 629 Jackson. The Queen Anne style Bibb House is one of a handful of historic homes with a turret in the city. It also retains its impressive multicolored slate roof. In 1895, William Ashbury and Eliza Bibb bought the house for $2,500 at a tax auction. Bibb was the grandson of Alabama's first governor and served as president of the Morgan County National Bank. So there you go. Short but sweet, a very beautiful house. Okay, this is number 15, the Neal House, 646 Jackson Street. Built in 1910, the Louis A. and Jessie D. Neal home is another excellent example of colonial revival architecture. Note the giant order of the front porch columns, the boxed end cornice, and wide frieze. Lewis practiced as a dentist. His office was on 2nd Avenue. How interesting, huh? Hopefully you like that. Okay, this one is stop 16, the Borton House, 650 Jackson Street, built circa 1906. The Free Classic Victorian has design details that originate from Queen Anne Victorian and Classical Revival styles. Leaded and stained glass windows, along with ornately carved mantels, are outstanding features of the house. This house was home for Alonzo W. and Alice H. Borton. Alonzo served as president of the Decatur Cornice and Roofing Company, which is located at 601 Johnson Street. Interesting. Okay, this one is stop 17, the Simpson House. This was built in 1911 for William H. and Mary D. Simpson. This house is an example of Georgian revival architecture that was so popular early in the 20th century. William was appointed judge of the City Court of Decatur in 1889 and became Chancellor of the Northern District of Alabama in 1894. Mary was known for her charity work at Central Baptist Church. To stop number 18, Westminster Presbyterian Church at 801 Jackson Street. Westminster began when a group of 16 men and women met in 1888 with John Davis, who had been sent to New Decatur by the Presbyterian Home Mission Board. Davis returned to the board to complete his training, but upon his return he was not allowed to leave the train because of the yellow fever epidemic. The following spring, E. Horace Porter was sent to New Decatur as Westminster's first pastor. When he arrived, there was no church building, only a lot on 8th and Jackson. Okay, so nothing here but dirt. This is stop number 19, Connecticut Mills Company House, 1038 Jackson Street. In the 1920s, R.E. Spriggans, Shelby Fletch, H.B. Beard, and John W. Knight were recruited the Connecticut Mills Company to construct a cotton mill in Decatur at the site now occupied by Hyosung. As an incentive, in 1927, they built 2 residences for mill officials. The house was built for the plant manager, Roland H. Gray, and his wife, Fannie L.A. A few years later, Connecticut Mill Company failed, and Goodyear acquired the factory. Mr. Gray stayed in Decatur for several years and served as the first executive director for the newly formed Chamber of Commerce. The house next door, 1036, was constructed for the plant's vice manager. Alright, so let me just flip this and that. You're looking at the other house it's talking about right there, 1036. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, this is number 20, Courtner Smith House, 623 Grant Street. This large stone house was designed and built in 1934 by pioneering female architect Carolyn Courtner Smith for her widowed mother, Clara Ashford Sanders Courtner. Miss Smith was known for her use of native materials such as the stone used in this house. Carolyn Courtner Smith also responsible for the design of the stone structures and of the 1930s Rose Garden at Delano Park, for her early restoration of the old State Bank in the old Decatur Historic District. Stop 21, the Bowles House, 445 Jackson Street, built in the early 20th century. This house was originally located in the south side of Jackson Street in the 600 block. It was moved to its current location in the early 1920s by a mule team and was left in the street overnight before being placed on its current foundation. An older neighbor remembered that it looked like a bride left at the altar, all white screen porches, slightly listing, and forlorn. Thomas A. and Argentina Bowles were the residents in the early 1920s. Thomas was a cashier at Central National Bank. The current owners were told the house was haunted at the time of purchase. So far, they report a happy coexistence and no complaints of any spirits. This is stop 22, the White House, 425 Jackson Street. In 1887, 3 well-to-do White brothers from Covington, Kentucky stopped at Rhodes Ferry on their way to Birmingham. Mr. L. Buford Wyatt was so impressed with the L&N Railroad shops and the shipbuilding facilities in Decatur that he and his brothers determined Decatur was the hub of the South and settled their families here on the 400 block of Jackson circa 1890. L. Buford and his wife Jenny resided at this house. Mr. Wyatt was a retail estate agent. Hi, sorry for the hand in the shop, but I was trying to block the sun. Hopefully I got enough to be good. This is stop number 23, the Vintage Faith, 413 Sherman Street. In 1898, the Mission Organization of New York State of the Congregational Church built Christ's Mission, but the congregation failed to thrive. In 1901, St. Paul's Lutheran Church bought the building and utilized the church for 67 years. In 1951, to increase the size of the sanctuary, the church had the building turned on the lot. The mover allegedly assured the anxious pastor that if he so much as rang the bell during the move, the mover would pay the preacher $50. The bell did not ring. Immediately beside the church is a small house that was constructed in 1901 at the School of the St. Paul's congregation. The original building was 1 room wide and 3 rooms deep and used pot-bellied stoves for heating. Church records show that besides the 3 R's, English was taught in the mainly German-speaking community. The building functioned as a school for a few years and then had additions to accommodate serving as parsonage for St. Paul's at about 50 years. This is stop 24, Papenburg, 425 Sherman Street, it says. Built circa 1920 for Henry and Mary Papenburg. This home is an excellent example of the American four-square style. The boxy four-square shape provides room interior for homes on small city lots. Typical of the style is the 2.5 stories, 4-room floor plan, low-hipped roof with a deep overhang, central dormer, and a full-length porch and with wide stairs. Mr. Papenburg was a merchant who immigrated to the U.S. from Germany in 1890. A small studio photograph of Mary and the Papenburg's 3 children remain in the house. Okay, pretty cool. This is stop number 25, Fort Decatur, 610 4th Avenue. Construction on the Decatur Armory, now known as Fort Decatur, began in 1937 as part of the New Deal programs and improvements to Delano Park. Some of the stone veneer used on this structure and the stone structures in the park is believed to have been quarried in Morgan County by teams of WPA and CCC workers. You will see the small Girl Scout little house located on the rear of the Fort Decatur facing 6th Avenue. Designed as an open-air pavilion by Carolyn Courtner Smith, walls were added in the 1940s by the Girl Scouts, who have continued to use the building as a hub for activities in cross 6th Avenue to east end of Delano Park. There are interpretive history markers that continue through the park. All right, I will show you the little house that it's talking about. All right, this is the little building it was talking about that's used by the Girl Scouts today. The sun's a little bit killer, but we're getting a shade here. So that was the side, and I'll just show you this front part here. And you see it says Girl Scout Little House right there on that. So there we go. There's the whole building right there. All right, so let's move on. We got 2 more stops, and that's the end of it. Okay, this is stop number 26, St. John's Episcopal Church at 202 Gordon Drive. After the Episcopal Church in Old Decatur burned in 1889, newer members of the parish wanted to rebuild near their homes and received permission to organize a parish in New Decatur. Thus, St. John's was established in 1890 and became a parish in 1891. The church building, comprising the present nave and chancel area, was dedicated in 1893. Originally facing north, the building was physically turned in 1948 to face west. At the time, the present entrance and tower were built, and the building was stone veneered, and St. John's interior is modeled after Gothic English parish churches. The final stop on the tour, the Princess Theater, is on 2nd Avenue. You'll notice the specialty shops and restaurants along the street. Many of the original buildings from the turn of the century housed hotels and mercantile stores with living quarters above. Okay, so we got that one last stop that I just read to you, and that'll finish the tour. Okay, this is our final stop, stop 27, the Princess Theater at 112 2nd Avenue. The Princess Theater on 2nd Avenue has been a North Alabama landmark for more than a century. Built as a livery stable for the Casa Grande Hotel in 1887, it was transformed into a silent film and vaudeville playhouse in 1919. The theater presented high-class roadshows, pictures, and vaudeville. After a facelift in 1941, the Princess emerged with the Art Deco style that remains today, featuring a brilliantly lit marquee containing more than 3,000 feet of neon tubing. Wow. In 1970, the city of Decatur purchased the Princess Theater. When the movie house closed after a $750,000 renovation, the Princess reopened in 1983 as a performing arts center. The Princess Theater was named a must-see arts destination by the Alabama Tourism Department. So there you go. That will finish off the tour. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's taken me many hours just to video this, so I hope you appreciate that. And so leave me a thumbs up, a comment, all that good stuff, and I will see you on the next video. Take care of yourself now.